Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hyperconscious Podcast. Alan, what is hyperconscious?
Once you understand why something is the way that it is, now you have the power to change it. Great conversations with great people and great questions are the keys to the kingdom of unlocking your consciousness.
Every single action that you do starts as a thought. When you control the way you think, you will control the way you act, and you will control the way you live. That is hyperconscious. Geographically? Geographically. This is cool. So I would say make sure that pretty face is showing.
Yes, true.
They're going to want to see that thing. They're going to want to see that thing, Alan. That face. You good? Ready? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special as always episode of the Hyperconscious Podcast. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode featuring Kimberly Spencer. Today we are going to do a small talks episode on the word excuses.
So first and foremost, quick friendly reminder here to go to the hyperconsciouspodcast.com and to get on our mailing list. There's a tab there that says join our mailing list. As you know, the only way your life gets better is if you get better first. Let us help you Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning kickstart your days off right.
We have had a lot of people signing up, and we appreciate you guys, and we're happy to be able to touch base with you and motivate you first thing in the morning. So
hell yes, and we work hard on those morning minutes, so get on that mailing list. Don't miss out. So here I have dictionary.com open, and the word for today is excuse.
Yeah.
A listener reached out and asked for this word, excuse, and I'm very excited about this one.
As am I. I think we're going to sure we're going to go two different ways with this, as we always do.
Right.
But it's going to be okay. After you do the definition, set the timer, because we didn't do it.
Sounds good. Okay, so first and foremost, one of the definitions is to serve as an apology or justification for, to release from an obligation or duty. Interesting. To seek or obtain exemption or release for oneself. I like that one a lot. Not because I like excuses, because I don't.
Right.
No excuses, play like a champion. But those are the three most relevant definitions.
Right. That is a word. So I was actually in the preamble. So Alan and I we were talking business for a couple hours before this. So during the preamble, I was thinking of, okay, what am I going to talk about during this small talks episode? How do I want to approach excuses? What are the topics I want to touch on? Examples, blah, blah, blah. And I was going to do it from a discipline standpoint and why you should not make excuses when it comes to you chasing your dreams and goals. But I want to talk to people about excuses when it comes to ownership.
Yeah.
Because I think that one of the things that I have gotten far better at over the past year and a half since I started this personal development journey is taking ownership for my own shit.
Right.
And like when I screw up, I try to take ownership for it. We had a call, I don't remember who it was, but I didn't get the person's number.
Oh yeah, right. I think that we had a call scheduled on a podcast.
Jesse Elder.
Jesse Elder, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I prospected. I saw Jesse Elder. I was blown away. We hooked up with his people, set up a date, and I never got his number to call him. And in those moments,
right,
when Alan's like, yo, you need their number to talk to them. And, in those moments where the pressure gets to you and you're overwhelmed and you feel like you get a little self-conscious because it's like, shit, I should have known better than that. I shouldn't have screwed that up. There's two ways you can approach it. Look, Alan, I've been busy. I've been stressed out. I'm overwhelmed. You don't know what I do on the day-to-day while you're sleeping in, watching Netflix. You don't know what kind of things I have going on. Or you can say, yo, that's totally my bad, man. It's been a minute since I got the guest, and I slipped up, and it won't happen again. I learned from it. I think it took me a long time to do that, and I think that it's because for a long time I had so much attached to being good. Like screwing up was bad.
Right.
And it still isn't good, but it helps you fail forward. We always say fail forward, right? So failing forward, in order to fail forward, you have to not make excuses. You have to handle your shit and you have to take ownership for why things went wrong in the first place, because that's the only way you're going to be able to make a change. You cannot change something that you don't take responsibility for.
100%.
So that's how I'm going to approach this episode.
I actually don't think we're going to disagree on this because I agree with everything you just said very wholeheartedly. So first and foremost, taking ownership. So at one point in your life, you basically mentioned that you wanted to show up and do well and be seen as doing well, whereas now you kind of understand that making mistakes is proof that you're trying.
Necessary. It is necessary.
And one thing that I'll say too for the listeners, like when you do make a mistake, I'll tell you what, when you own it right away, other people will not be as harsh with you. Like for example, if Kevin was to make all those excuses, I'm sure that my reaction to that would be like, well, what do you mean, man? Like, you know, we're professionals. We needed the number, like, obviously. Whereas because he took ownership right away and said, my bad, any wind in my sails of, like, criticism was gone because immediately it was like, okay, he gets that, you know, he made a mistake and I've made millions of mistakes. I'm going to continue to make mistakes. One thing that I think you and I are really good at is taking ownership when we screw up.
Yeah.
And the other person is more supportive. Whereas, like, you're hard on yourself, so I don't have to be hard on you. And I'm hard on myself, so you don't have to be hard on me. Because for the listeners, I mean, we make mistakes constantly, and we fail forward constantly. And I couldn't agree more with the taking ownership. And I think taking ownership means you're not going to make excuses. Even though some excuses might seem valid, at the end of the day, there's always something you could have done better.
Even, I'm just thinking on, when it comes to everything, like I remember there are times, I'll use this as an example because this was one of the more embarrassing / learning experience that I had. But when I was working at my old job, one of the things that I was responsible for was to spray blown-in insulation into attics.
Okay.
So we were at a town hall in Stockbridge, Massachusetts, which is western Massachusetts, probably an hour and a half from here. Beautiful place, actually. You drive out there during leaf peeping season, and it's a beautiful sight. But I blew, I think, 2 pallets of material into the wrong attic.
Yeah.
And each one of those pallets is like $2,000. So I blew $4,000 of material into the wrong place. And once you blow it out, there's no getting it back. Like you would have to bag it up into trash bags. It's not reasonable.
Right.
So I called my project manager and said, hey, I think I actually said, like, I think I fucked up. I blew it all into the attic over this part of the building. And he was like, yeah, no, we weren't doing that at all. And I was like, yeah, man, that's my bad. I read the plan wrong, and I don't know. I'm sorry, man. What do you want me to do? And he said, honestly, man, like shit happens. Don't worry about it. Just make sure you read the plan better next time. Right. And that helped me realize, like, okay, for a long time, I would have tried to hide that fact.
Yeah.
Or I would have been afraid to say it. Now, of course, I still was a little bit afraid, but if you're a human being, you're going to make mistakes.
Period.
And you can either own them and learn from them or make an excuse of it was somebody else's fault. And I think when it comes to relationships, and you guys are going to love the episode that we have dropping Sunday. We have a lot. We went deep into relationships with Spike Spencer. But you'll hear people make excuses.
Yeah.
We broke up. Yeah, she was crazy, man. Like, she was crazy, man. She was so controlling, this, that, the other thing. Or he was verbally abusive or blah, blah, blah. Maybe he was. Maybe she was controlling. But what did you learn there?
Right.
What did you do wrong? Did you do anything wrong? Or were you perfect?
What was your part in this play?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest things. If you're listening to this, you're going to get feedback from other people. That's almost non-negotiable. That's going to happen. But you have to make sure that when it comes to giving yourself feedback, you're not making excuses. You lost your fitness show.
Yes.
You could have easily made the excuse that I had so much going on in my life. I was burning down. The podcast was ramping up. I was going through personal things. But you didn't. You said, look, I thought it was going to be easier than it was, and I learned. And I think that's the only way to grow. If you're making excuses when it comes to anything in life, you're selling yourself short.
I couldn't agree more. And just for the listeners, when I did lose my show, I honestly did fall into the trap for a little while of making excuses. At first, it was like, oh, I was bigger than that guy. But at the end of the day, and here's the real kicker, I saw the video. And everything that you and Matt and Nate had tried to tell me that I wasn't lean enough became very clear to me when I got the feedback. Because when you're on stage, you can't really see yourself on stage until you watch the video. And then you go, wow, okay. The guy who won was way leaner than me. Yeah, I had more muscle mass, but that's not what the shows are about, Alan. Right? And so here's the thing. If I made excuses, then I wouldn't be able to rectify those. There's something that I've been doing with my clients a lot lately that I think is really, really important. And because I care about the listeners so much, I want to say this to you because I came to this realization, and it's a pretty intense and what I believe relevant to excuses mentality. So you mentioned ownership. Full responsibility, full ownership. Here's what I say to my clients. If you're a listener out there, you can take this or leave this, but I truly believe that this is the best power position you can be in. I think this will change your life. Number one, you are 100% responsible for everything you think, everything you feel, and everything you do. More importantly, you are also responsible for everything you don't think, everything you don't feel, and more importantly, everything you don't do. That's what a lot of people don't get. You're also responsible for the action that you're not taking, okay? And now here's the kicker. This is like what I would argue the greatest form of mastery, if you can get to this level, and I believe you can. You are also responsible for everything you think, feel, and do about what is done to you. And most importantly, the way you react to it. Yes, maybe that person was verbally abusive. There was a person in the gym on Saturday, I believe, and Jenny and I were in the gym, and it was super packed. And we just started our workout, and we went over to start getting in the mirror and doing, I think we're doing bicep curls with dumbbells, and usually we'll stand next to each other and do that. This lady was so mad at us because we were in her quote-unquote personal space. Now, we were nowhere near her, and the gym was packed, and there was no other spots to really move to. And so she got really mad. She, kind of got in me and Jenny's face, and she basically said, like, how dare you be in my personal space? Like, I was here first, all this stuff. And I said, excuse me, ma'am, but if you look around, there's really not a lot of space right now. The gym is packed, and there's only so many mirrors. And I said, if you look behind you, there's tons of room for you to step back a few paces. She got really adamant. She got really mad, and she was insistent. And her husband was sitting there, like, kind of shaking his head. And so I said, okay, no worries. And I just went and I moved to the spot that she could have easily backed up into. The point is this. I could have reacted poorly to her being, I'll be honest with you, she was being completely unreasonable. She was being completely mean, and I could have reacted terribly and been mean back. But that's not how you win, because that wouldn't solve anything and it wouldn't help anybody. So instead, I just moved. Jenny and I got on with our workout. We had a great workout, and I didn't let it bother me. And that's the timer.
Worst alarm ever.
That might have been the fastest episode of all time.
Oh, yeah, it went by quick.
So anyways, the last thing I'll say about that whole thing, after the timer gets stopped here, is you are 100% responsible for everything you do and don't do, and most importantly, the way you react to what other people do to you.
And I just want to quickly touch on, I don't think it would be a good excuses episode if we didn't at least touch on making excuses when it comes to doing the things that you know you should be doing. It's very easy in the moment, and I always use waking up early, right? You're going to have every excuse in the book because you just rolled out of bed. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, and you just were awakened from a deep sleep. Your body and your mind, the machine, is going to give you every reason not to. But what are the reasons why you want to succeed? What are the reasons why you set these as your goals in the first place? The only way to break down your excuses is to figure out the bigger why. Like, your excuses will not live if it's necessary for you to succeed. In order for us to succeed, we need to do 3 episodes a week.
Yep.
There are no excuses that could ever overpower that.
Nope.
I will podcast from the hospital.
Right.
But that is the goal. When the goal is to do that, the excuses would have to be unbelievably big.
Yeah. When your reason is big enough, your excuses will not win.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a great, I kind of wanted to say a quick story about that. So
quick.
Yeah, right. the thing that Darren Hardy always says this. He said, if I were to put a 20-foot plank on a 2-foot cinder block and then give you $20 to walk across it, everybody's hand would shoot up and they'd say, okay, a free $20, nice. Now, if I took that same plank and put it on the top of 2 100-story foot buildings, all of a sudden, that $20 doesn't look so good. Everyone would be like, hell no, that's not worth it. That's too risky. But if your loved one, who you love most dearly in the world, maybe your child or your significant other, was on the other building and the other building was on fire, immediately you would walk across that plank, no questions asked. What changed? The reason for doing it. If your reason isn't big enough, your excuses will be 100% of the time. The problem is that a lot of people don't understand the compound effect of waking up at 4 a.m. every day for a full year. Can you imagine what your life might look like if you stopped making excuses? I'm telling you, it's drastic. It's drastic.
Well, and another thing is just, and I'll end on this, think about 6 months. So if you're making excuses now for not going to the gym, for not starting your diet that you really want to start, nobody else is pushing it on you. You want to start it yourself. You already have your bikini or your board shorts picked out for the beach season that's coming up, whatever it may be. You already have the parties planned out, whatever. When you get to that point in the summer and you're not confident enough to wear your new bikini or take your shirt off at a party, your excuses won't matter. You'll look back and say, like, why did I make so many dumb excuses? Sometimes you got to put yourself in the pain. We've talked about that before. But if you're making excuses, then visualize yourself not accomplishing your goal, and those excuses will dissolve pretty quickly.
I couldn't agree more.
Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed recording. Up next, we're actually going to go very deep on the journey of life versus just the existence of life. If you have a big goal, if you feel like you know what your purpose is, then you're going to be reaching almost forever. And if you compare that to somebody who is just kind of like trying to survive, trying to pay the bills, trying to quote unquote stay the same in a world where staying the same actually means you're kind of going backwards, we're going to talk about that next.
I'm very excited for this one. As you know, the journey is the goal, but it's also predicated on the destination. Do not miss this next episode. And again, no more excuses. Play like a champion.
We will talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for listening to another episode of the Hyper Conscious Podcast.
Going hyper-conscious will absolutely change your life, because if you understand why something is the way it is, now you have the power to change it. If you going hyper-conscious with us has changed your life in any way, please share this episode with one of your friends, because the more people that go hyper-conscious, the better this world's going to be for everybody.
And if you would kindly leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, that would help us make more people hyper-conscious, and we would be greatly appreciative.
Thank you.
Bye.